Hi everybody, thank you for joining me again. My name is Carol. This is a quick follow-up on the video that I did yesterday about magic and why it can be dangerous. So I want to give you some of my personal experiences with negative energy and demonic activity, etc. I also want you to know, without going into a lot of detail, that there is a difference between negative energy and negative entities and demons, and that our perception of them makes a huge difference in the role that they play in our lives. But, okay, so with that said, and without making this too long or too complicated, some of my experiences. My experiences with demons started at a very young age, and we're talking about early years of grade school. And most of those experiences, the ones that I remember the most clearly, were in the dream state. And on a regular basis, I had dreams about something very evil chasing me. It was old, it was evil, and it was trying to get me, and I was always running from it. So, and I'm sure that those dreams and those experiences are what led me to seek God, to know who God was, and eventually to finding Jesus. So, and this is not a video about Christianity or Jesus or God or religion in any way. This is just about demons, but in order to tell you some of those experiences, I do have to relate back to my search for God and finding Jesus, etc. So, as a young girl, they were mostly through dreams, and it was always with a demon chasing me, and it was always this particular demon. So, who I later, in my later years, came to ascribe as the devil. I'm not so sure about that these days, but that kind of negative, old, evil sort of energy. So, the next thing that I wanted to tell you about with my experience with it is during my early teens, some family members, I think it was two of my brothers and my sister, and several of my friends had seen this. I think some of you may have heard of this particular one, but he appears as a very tall man, and you can't see his face, or there's no identifying marks except that he has red eyes, and he's always portrayed as very shadowy with a hat. And I personally have not seen him, but my family and friends have. And my friends who saw him always saw him when they were with me at this one particular house that I used to babysit at. So whether he was situated with that house or if he was following me around, I do not know. I never did see him, but they did. And so did a couple of my family members. And I can't remember if it was my brother or my sister woke up one night because they felt like somebody was staring at them, and when they opened their eyes, all they could see were these two glowing red eyes right above them staring at them. So, now that's not a personal experience of mine, but it happened in my vicinity and with people who were very close to me. So, one of the first, if not the first, one of the first entity attachments that I experienced was a crab-like creature, and it was in the mid-90s. And I had already begun my awakening process, and I was reading everything I could get my hands on, and I was doing a lot of meditating and going to lectures, etc., trying to figure out what was going on with me and how to deal with it. And I somehow got the understanding, I can't remember how it came to me, but I got the understanding that I had an entity attached to me. And so as I was walking one day across the bridge, I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I saw it very clearly. Not with my third dimensional eyes, but with my etheric eyes. And I saw the creature very clearly, and it was glommed onto my back, and it was crab-like. And it was not only sucking energy from me, but it was at the same time transferring negative energy to me, doubts, etc. And so I did not know anybody who could work with energy or who could remove entities, etc., because I was so new on my path. So I had to figure out myself how to remove that entity, and I did. I did eventually figure it out. It took a while, and it took a lot of focus and a lot of meditation, but I was successful in removing that entity. So what I want to tell you about the times leading up to that is that when I first started awakening, back in the late 80s, and it was a gradual process for me. So little by little, I became more and more enamored with witchcraft and spells and angels and Celtic magic, etc. So I never really did a lot with it, but I read a lot about it. And while I was doing that, while I was immersing myself in magic and learning about magic, I believe that that is how I started to open up and attract these negative energies and this one entity that eventually glommed onto me. So, and yes, I had already known Jesus at that time, and I believe that that is what kept me, because as I will tell you in later experiences, I have been, in moments of dealing with demons, I have just been automatically given prayers, etc., to say and shown what to do in order to get rid of them. So I do believe that that's what has kept me safe. But even so, I did have experiences with them. So I'm going to try and do this chronologically. So again, in the mid-90s, which was a very active time for me because I was becoming fully awakened at that time. And what I mean by that is that in the beginning of our awakening process, we get little hints and little clues and little synchronistic moments happen. And we try to follow those, and little by little, we start to realize that there's something going on here and that we want to understand it. We need to pay attention to it. And then when you're fully into your awakening process, you know without a doubt that there is something going on, even though you're still trying to figure it out. But it's no more, you don't need those tiny little hints to tell you, hey, something's going on here. You've had so many of them already that you know that something's going on. So by the time the mid-90s come around, I am fully awakened, and I'm trying to understand things and trying to become comfortable with the etheric world and the things that I'm seeing and the things that I'm hearing, the entities that I'm feeling around me, etc. So I had a lot of demonic activity around me at that time. So one of them was one of my first conscious OBEs that I experienced, and it was quite spontaneous. And I had laid down to go to sleep and hadn't had my eyes closed for more than a few moments, and all of a sudden I was whisking out of my body very, very quickly. It was like it's hard to explain, but I felt like I was had been on a bungee cord and was pulled up very quickly. And so I'm going at like these rocket speeds, and I knew that it wasn't my physical body. I mean, I hadn't fallen asleep yet. So I'm going up very quickly, and I'm thinking to myself, what if my cord snaps? I need to slow down and go back to my body. And as soon as I had that thought, I was going back to my body. So that the way that the things work in that realm, in the etheric world, is that our thoughts, excuse me one moment. So the way it works in the etheric realm is that things happen with our thoughts spontaneously. I mean, thoughts like this. And they're actually, the government has actually been doing work. I mean, you have to really search for it online, but you can find those studies where they're working with, you know, like the speed of light is so fast. They're saying that the speed of thought, that if you're on Earth and there's somebody up on the moon, that if you know how to do this, the moment the person on Earth has a thought, the person on the moon can have the thought at the same time. So that's going off into a different realm and a different topic, but that's how it works. So I'm doing this out-of-body experience and going very fast and don't want to break my silver cord that connects me to my body. So I have the thought that I need to go back to my body, and boom, I'm going back to my body. Because one of the other things that I had started to think was, how do I slow down? I'm going so fast. But as soon as I had the thought about slowing down, I was going back to my body already. I get back to my body, and I can't get into my body. And I can see my cat, and my cat is laying on my legs, and I'm trying to get back into my body, and the feeling was like as if my spirit was a cork, and my body was a jar of water, a full jar of water. So if you try to push that cork into that jar of water, it just keeps popping back out. Well, that's what it felt like. So finally I get into my body and I cannot move. And some people have said, oh, sleep paralysis. I'm telling you, I was fully conscious this was not sleep paralysis. So I can't move my body, I can't move my fingers, I can't move my head, you know, I'm just stationary, stuck there. And there is a demon at the foot of my bed, by my feet, and he was being rude and crude, and I can't remember right now if he said something or not, but there was a laughter and there was a sinister smile on his face. And it was almost sexual. And I was freaking out inside, and I'm thinking, I have to move. And so, but no matter what I did, I told my hands to move, I told, you know, I was giving and trying to give instructions to every part of my body to make it move, and I couldn't. So then I thought, I wonder how much time has passed. So upon having that thought, now mind you, that was not a directive. I did not try to tell myself to do something. I did not try to tell myself to look at the clock. I just wondered what time it was, how much time had passed. And in that second, in that split moment, I was able to turn my head very slowly, what felt like very slowly, over to my alarm clock and see what time it was. And then as soon as my eyes were able to focus on the time, my head felt like it snapped back, like it was on a rubber band, and just snapped back into place. And right after that, I was able to start moving my hands and my extremities. So I don't know that it was my physical head that actually turned to look at the clock, or if it was my essence, my spiritual self, my soul, that turned to look at the clock and not my body. Because in that moment, in that state, and being my very first conscious out-of-body experience, it was all brand new to me. But so anyhow, my main desire at that time was to get rid of the demon at the foot of my bed. So once I get fully anchored back into my body, the demon is gone, and I see my cat is still laying on my legs, like he was protecting me. And that's another thing. Cats are very, very good at protecting us from the dark forces. So, said some prayers, was able to get rid of it, went to sleep. Now, while I was freaked out by the whole experience, I wasn't traumatized by it, because, as I said, I've had those type of experiences throughout my life where they've always come at me and come after me. So it wasn't new to me. Well, in that same time period, I had made an amethyst necklace. I used to make jewelry. And I had made an amethyst necklace for a friend of mine, and to keep her safe and to help her in her pursuits of enlightenment, etc. So anyhow, I made her this amethyst necklace. I gave it to her, and she was quite young and just at drinking age or so. And so she had gone out to the bars this one night. I was at home sleeping, and I found out about the story the following day. So I'm at home sleeping, and all of a sudden, this demon comes to me, and this whole scenario plays out in a lucid dream kind of way, so that I know that my physical body is in bed sleeping, but I'm having this experience with this demon who is trying to lure me out of my house and to hurt me. So I did what I was instructed to do, prayer-wise, etc., to get rid of the demon, and then went back to sleep. And the next day, my friend calls me, and she tells me this experience she had, and I totally tripped out. I tripped out more on her telling me about her experience than I did on my own experience with the demon, because when she told me about it, it confirmed the experience that I'd had with the demon that night. And what had happened with her was that she had been out drinking with friends, and they went back to a friend's house who had previously been involved in a satanic cult, and she did not know about it at the time. So they went back to his house, a group of people, and they started playing with the Ouija board and conjuring and all that other stuff. And something really evil, according to her, came to them and started messing with her, and it scared her. It really, really scared her. So she, because she knew I was into that sort of stuff and that I understood it more, she clutched her necklace, the one that I had made for her, the amethyst one, and so I was already connected to it, and it was supposed to keep her safe. She clutched her necklace and she screamed out for me, out loud. And so in that moment, that demon went from where they were there and came over to me and started messing with me. But I was able to get rid of it. So that story is to tell you how when you're dealing with that sort of thing and you're playing with magic and you're playing with conjuring and spell casting, etc., you can attract that negative energy or entity or a demon to you, and you can actually send it to somebody else. So your life is not the only one that is impacted by that negative energy, by that dark force. So another time, also in the mid-90s, I was staying with my mother, and I was sleeping on her couch, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I must have been out of body, but I don't recall. But I do remember I woke up in the middle of the night. Something woke me up. It was like somebody or something was shaking me awake. And I woke up just in time to hear a man's voice coming out of my mouth, speaking some language, that I have no idea what it was, or to this day what it was. But I immediately did my prayers and to get rid of it and to keep myself safe. But I've had other experiences just like that after that, where once in Sedona, when I lived in Sedona, and I know I was out of body this time, but I didn't know it while I was out of body. I didn't realize that I'd been out of body till I came back to my body. And it was my higher guidance that had brought me back to my body. It had told me, something is trying to inhabit your body. You need to get back to it right now. So I get back to my body and again have a little bit of a difficult time anchoring into it, but not as difficult as the first time. And I could feel its presence inside of me, trying to share my body with me. And I was immediately given this prayer to say, and I had to say it 10 times. And so I started saying it, and I was so exhausted, because OBEs can exhaust you physically. And so I started saying the prayer, and I told my higher guidance that I was too tired to stay awake to say it all 10 times in a row. And they said that was okay as long as I said it 3 times, a minimum of 3 times, before falling back to sleep. And they would wake me up to repeat it. And sure enough, they did. So I said it 3 times the first time, and 3 times the second time, and 4 times the last time. Because they woke me up in order for me to be able to finish those prayers, because that's how important it was to make sure that this entity did not remain in my body with me. Most of those experiences, I don't have another human being to corroborate those experiences with. I mean, so it's just my word against everybody else's or anybody else's. So I could be telling you a story. I'm telling you I'm not telling you a story. I'm telling you that this is my truth. These are experiences that I've really had. And anybody who personally knows me will tell you that I'm not a person who fabricates things. So, and I try really hard not to stretch the truth either. Some of those experiences can be corroborated, like the ones with the tall dark man with the hat, because I have the family members that had those experiences will tell you about them. And my friends who were with me and saw him will tell you that they actually saw him, etc. And then, you know, the boyfriends that I had at the time can also corroborate some of those experiences, me waking up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden just saying prayers or a different voice coming out of me, etc. But most of them cannot be corroborated. And then probably one of the last times that I had demonic experiences was in 2002-2003 time period. And I was associated with people who were practicing dark magic. And I had the understanding that that's what was happening, but I had no proof on it. And at that time, my little mind still held sway over the rest of me. So my little mind said, yeah, you don't have any proof, and that stuff isn't real, and, you know, that's... So I kept it there. I mean, I understood that this was possibly what was going on, but my little mind didn't want to believe it. So the point being is that I had a couple, more than 2 people. I had like 3 people, at least 3 people around me that were practicing witchcraft. And it was dark magic. And they were even sending it to me purposely to wreak havoc in my life. And it wasn't until my mother, who was 1,800 miles away from me in Wisconsin, and I'm in Arizona, and it wasn't until I talked to her on the telephone and she says, I had this dream and these really bad people and like vampires like sucking your life out of you and etc. So she's telling me about her dream, and it clicks, and I told her, thank you for telling me, because yes, I do have something like that going on in my life right now. And so then I started to take it a lot more serious at that time. So what eventually ended up happening, and it's not the end of the story, but one of the things that did end up happening during that time with those people is that in a lucid dream, this demon kept coming after me. And every time I would spot him, he was coming after me in different human bodies, inside, like he was taking over other people. And every time I would recognize him in somebody's body and I would say something, he'd jump from that person's body into somebody else's body. And he kept doing that several times in this lucid dream until he got very close to me. And then, and I have this written down in a journal someplace, and someday I'm going to write a book, I swear. But, so somewhere in this journal, all the particulars, all the details are written down, and that I cannot recall at this precise moment. But he got close enough to me, and my guidance told me who it was, and that I was supposed to call this demon by its name in order to stop it, in order to call it out, to bring it forward, to hold it down, to make it leave me alone. And so I did. I called it by its name, and it stopped. And I said some kind of a prayer. My guidance told me the prayer that I was supposed to say, and I said the prayer. And I called the demon by its name, and it stopped, and it left me alone, and it was gone. And I opened my eyes, really, in real life, I opened my eyes in that moment thinking, wow, that was a close call. And because, mind you, even though it was a dream, it was a lucid dream, meaning I knew that I was having this experience in another realm, not in this 3D physical realm. But that doesn't make the experience any less real. So I open my eyes after it's done, and as soon as I open, I'm laying on my side like this, because I'm a side sleeper. I'm laying on my side, and I open my eyes, and there is the demon in bed with me, right next to me, its eyes staring right at me. And so I just looked at it, and I repeated the prayer, and it was gone, and I went back to sleep. So again, this is another experience that if most people have that experience, they're going to totally lose it or freak out, because you wake up in the middle of the night, you have this demon chasing you, you wake up, you open your third dimensional eyes, and you physically see this creature laying next to you in bed. That's enough to trip a lot of people out. But because I've had so many of these experiences, it was not a really traumatic moment for me. I mean, I was just glad that my guidance gave me the instruction on how to get out of it. And this video is going way longer than I wanted it to be. I think I may edit some pieces out of here. Anyway, so the reason for me telling you those experiences is so that you will know that negative energy and negative entities and demons are real. And all three are different. A negative energy is not the same as a negative entity, and a negative entity is not the same as a demon. And the way that I finally rid myself of that demonic activity in my life from those people who were practicing the dark arts was to rebaptize myself in Lake Michigan in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And it was in October, and the water was freezing. And this is another story I'll tell at a later time. But I immersed myself in Lake Michigan in those freezing waters and didn't even realize really what I was doing until I was doing it, that I was rebaptizing myself and reclaiming my sovereignty so that those demons would leave me alone. And it worked. It worked. It absolutely worked. But anyhow, I just wanted you all to know some of my personal experiences, that these things are real, and it does not matter whether or not you believe in them in order for them to affect your life. So, better schooled, and if you're feeling negative energy around you, go to prayer. Prayer almost always works, especially if your faith is there. Your faith is the #1 key ingredient as to whether or not your prayers are going to work. And it does not matter your religion. Your faith is what matters. If your faith is strong enough, your prayers will work. Promise. All right. Any questions? Please comment below. In the meantime, everybody, wonderful day, wonderful life. Love you all.